Hi, I'm Eddie Patton, a practicing neurologist in the Houston area, and I currently serve on the board of the Texas Neurological Society. I'm excited to bring to you this edition of the Business of Neurology. This video series is sponsored by TNS. The goal of this series is to help the members of the Texas Neurological Society understand certain business aspects of the practice of neurology. Let's say that I'm a practicing neurologist and I see that there have been some changes in reimbursement, changes in my practice where I really want to look for ways to enhance my practice, either by adding additional services or making things more efficient.
Sure.
Where exactly do I start? How do I go about gathering information without having resources or business savvy office manager?
Yeah.
How do I get started?
So thank you for inviting me, Dr. Patton. So I think it's a great question. And what I would do is, first find your community, which is resources, starting with the Texas Neurological Society, American Academy of Neurology, which if there's members, there's a lot of resources available, including subject matter experts on this area. What I suggest before you even get into thinking about sort of enhancements and ancillary services is making sure that your core service line is robust financially. And there's a couple ways to do that. One is consistently looking at your expenses. And one of the things I hear a lot is, people thinking about reimbursement and adjustments to reimbursements, which are key and things we should also be attentive to. But really, we see creep in expenses. So something we really need to monitor. So the other question you had was on how to be an efficient practice. And one of the things that I like to do with new physicians that come to our practice is we sit down and again, we look at their mix of services. So is it E&M, procedures, what are they doing? And then we do a time study. So we look at their templates and we put values in there. So we say, you're going to do, a mix of level 4, a mix of level 5, a mix of level 3. You're going to do these procedures, and we look at the time that's associated with that. And we model this before they start based on historical stuff that we've seen in our practice, and we continue to monitor for about 90 days from them, and allows them to continue to monitor their template. And so that helps them really achieve a daily goal for productivity, so that they know they need to cover X amount of dollars per day. Their template needs to support that. And what we find a lot is people get very stuck into 10 patients, 11 patients, and not really thinking about the mix of the type of patients they're going after.
So I'd like to now discuss some of the legal parameters that surround physician ownership, physician ownership of imaging and different things like that. Can you talk with us about some of the laws, for instance, Stark laws or anti-kickback laws?
Yeah, I think the easiest way to keep this in the most simplest terms is that any time that there is either you as a referring, and referring is the key word here, referring physician or a family member, a close affiliate of you or your family, have an ownership and an interest of something that you're referring to, that is under the purview of the law. There are currently exclusions under this law, and that is to ensure that if there is a wholly owned entity within that organization, that you can fulfill clinical duties that don't violate that.
Can you enlighten us a little bit more about some of the technology you're familiar with and how some of this technology can make it?
It's exciting, right? This is such a huge area, and I think we can debate whether it's enhancing or disrupting, but I think we have to take advantage of what's available.
So I'd like to start off by you enlightening our audience a little bit more about what exactly goes into the process for coming up with medical codes, the CP2 process versus the RUC committee. Most neurologists and most physicians in general probably don't know a lot about this process. So if you could please just enlighten us about that.
Great. Well, CPT is owned by the American Medical Association. It's a product that's exclusively owned by the AMA, and it's been adopted by pretty much every insurance company, including Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services, as being the final authority on the codes that we use to bill for taking care of patients. So the current CPT process that we're using today began in 1992 with the creation of what we call E&M, that's Evaluation and Management Codes. And these are the cognitive codes that physicians and all healthcare providers use when establishing not the reason for the care they received, but is a method of billing for what was done to the patient during that period of time.
So, fast forward to today, the decision was made not to move forward with this, and there will be a new NM structure coming forward. So, what are your thoughts on the new or forecast based on the new NM codes coming out, and would it be favorable to neurologists?
So I think the bottom line is that it will be favorable to neurology, and it's not necessarily going to be favorable to all neurologists, but it'll be favorable to the work that neurologists do, and I'll get into the details of that in a bit.
Stuart, it sounds to me that it really comes down to one, what's the best fit, but also another big piece is the economics of things.
Yes.
And if you're a neurologist and you're trying to either prevent burnout or add some extra services to your clinic, and you're trying to make this decision between, should I bring in an APP? What types of things should you be looking at? And specifically, what type of models work? I've seen different models where a nurse practitioner may have their own independent clinic, or they may bill underneath the physician or see follow-ups. I can tell that we are in our infancy state when it comes to this. So give us some insight into different models and economic models as to how to build this out if you try to bring in an APP.
Right. And that's a big question. And you're right, there are so many variables. But let's start in the beginning and try to put it in some kind of organizational structure if we can. I'll try. First of all, we have to keep in mind that when you look at the data nationally, both for NPs and PAs who are employed, not just neurologists, but I mean nationally, 70 to 80% of NPs and PAs are on straight salary. Okay? And they're employed. Now that's important because when you hire a physician assistant, I said that they have to work under the supervision of a physician, and they embrace that philosophy, I might add. Their academy does. All billing goes straight to the corporation because Medicare and indemnity or commercial insurance cannot pay directly to a PA. So all payments of services provided go directly to the corporation or the doctor. Conversely, nurse practitioners are permitted to be paid by Medicare and by commercial carriers independently. So if you're hiring, let's say, a NP in your practice, your employment agreement will probably have something where that individual, if that individual is on a straight salary, will be turned over to the corporation. Okay, so that's a very important basic principle of the two. But you also have to figure out and know, as a employer, if you will, how are these specialties reimbursed? And it's not straightforward, and I'll try to make it as simple as I can.
And when is the best time for someone like myself to seek out a lawyer when it comes to these contract negotiations?
Well, you're not going to have much of an opportunity to educate yourself in contract review. So there's really no better time than right at the very beginning, because that contract is going to be a foreign subject to you when you get it in your hands. And if you think that you'll take a look at it first, and if you get stuck on an issue down the road in negotiation, you'll bring in a lawyer, what you're doing is depriving that lawyer of all the information leading up to the stuck place, and you're starting from zero, and it's completely politicized, and so you probably have done yourself a disservice and cost you money in the long run.
Yeah, it's also important to point out that I guarantee, particularly if you sign a contract or you're in negotiation with a large healthcare organization or a large practice, that they probably already had their lawyers reviewed it, and they had their team already on board.
You got it. That's the leveling of the playing field. If you don't have a lawyer review the contract, then it's you versus a lawyer, and that's not going to be any better than that lawyer's chance of going against you in a neurological examination of a patient. You're not going to be any better prepared to negotiate that contract than that lawyer is to treat a disease or a condition that one of your patients may have.